Artificial intelligence is definitely here to stay. ChatGPT and other AI services are here and they are coming fast, and so many people are using them. In today's episode of Meaningful Vitality, I'm going to break down just my thoughts on this topic and if I think this is a good thing or just what's kind of my thoughts on how it impacts mental health overall and what we can do about it, both good and some bad things. So I'm a fan of ChatGPT. I'm a fan of different AI programs. I use them pretty frequently, and I think they are a great thing to use. They're a great tool to make our lives easier, and they're just so cool how much they can do. And just in the short amount of time that I've been using them, just since about the beginning of this year, they've gotten so much better and more responsive and give better results. Specifically ChatGPT, that's the one I use the most. And I think it's so helpful. And those that learn how to use this kind of technology, they'll find success in however they're going to use it, whether that's in business, in their own personal life, in just the different tools. And I think something to know is AI and these types of services are in their infancy stages, so they are going to get a lot better. So what we call artificial intelligence today in 2023 will definitely be different in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I think it's going to continue to grow the same way technology has grown just in our own lives, in the last 20 years. When I first kind of started using a computer, it was very slow. It couldn't do a whole lot. Now I carry basically a computer around in my pocket every day and my cell phone. So that's a pretty big jump, pretty big change. And I think it's only going to continue to get better. So I think it's a very helpful tool. Some things that it can help us do is it can make our lives easier. Things that I'll do is I'll have it edit emails for me or help me write those emails and things like that, like those more administrative tasks. And it helps me get so much done in a short amount of time. And it takes stress out of my life, takes things off my plate, and I can, like I said, write these emails in a very quick fashion, and I can edit it, and I can change things very quickly. That's just one example. I know right now as a mental health counselor, I don't have as much of a use for it, but I have so many different clients. I have accountants that have found a way to make things just go by so quickly, different people in sales or business, the same thing, and it can help things in that way. And I think that is so helpful. And I think it's going to make our lives a lot easier. I've known teachers that have started maybe using it to help them grade and do things in that way. And you can teach it how to do these things in the way you want it to. So those are some good things to look at. However, I think we already have an issue, I would say, with technology in our lives. We have too many people that rely on technology. I have so many clients that will spend 5 to 8 hours a day on average. If you look at their screen time on their phone, that is so much time wasted and entrenched into technology. And I'm worried that it's just going to get worse. Social interaction is, a lot of people don't get that social interaction when it comes to the amount of time they spend with people because they get so much of it through social media, through online gaming, things like that. And if this artificial intelligence continues to grow, it already is going to feel like you're interacting with another person, and even more people are not going to interact with people in person. And that, I think, is a big problem for things such as depression, for social anxiety and anxiety overall. I already see it in the clients I work with, like I said. And if we have some kind of tool or some kind of system that basically can communicate to us and for us, I could also see it just getting a lot worse. There's been some up and coming things as far as relationships and basically having, it's hard for us maybe to imagine now because like I said, I think this technology is just going to continue to grow, but it's going to come to a point where, you're watching this on a screen right now or listening to it on a podcast. The AI system will look exactly like me and be able to communicate and sound like me. It's not going to look like a robot or a cartoon. It's not going to sound like a robot. It's going to look like you're actually talking to a real person, which I think has some promise for certain fields. But I think it's going to start, over time creating these false relationships, especially maybe in romantic relationships. I could see this being, I work with a lot of addiction, sexual addiction as well. I could see it becoming a big problem in the porn industry. Like I said, it's not going to look any different than a real person on the screen. And this person will respond the way you want them to. You know, they'll be able to be so much better than an actual person in fulfilling some of the needs. And they'll look like however you want them to look, and they'll be able to kind of learn the way you want them to learn and respond to you. That's obviously in the porn and the relationships, the romantic relationships area, but also just in relationships in general, where we're not going to want to go outside and interact with people possibly, because this is going to be a better friend than anyone you could go have dinner with. They're going to listen when you want them to listen. They're going to respond when you want them to respond, and respond the way you want them to respond. And that can be a big problem. So it's not just going to take over right away, but we just have to be really conscious of this and not letting it, you know, fill that void, and that we continue to prioritize relationships. I've said it so much on this channel. Those that are healthiest and happiest have really good, solid relationships in their life and friendships, and have good social interaction. So we need to prioritize that. It's also maybe going to reduce critical thinking, because it can be a little biased or limited. It's not perfect right now. I think it will continue to get better, but we're just going to maybe get to a point where whatever the AI system says, we're like, okay, that's fact. We're not going to fact check it, you know, like we do now, and, you know, maybe look at a couple different sources. And that's also something that already maybe exists. If you look up, you know, something about health, or you look up some kind of, you know, statistic, or, you know, history date, and if you just look at the very first thing, the very first link that popped up on Google or something, you know, that's going to be limited already. So it just kind of reminds us that we need to check a couple of different sources and not just listen to the first thing we hear or we see from AI. Also, it could reduce creativity. I know some colleges and schools and high schools are already kind of seeing this, where students will just type generic papers with a ChatGPT like system, and they don't edit it. It's not very personal. And also, like, my wife's a teacher, and she says she sees it with some of her students. She's a middle school teacher, and they'll be using words and language that no middle schooler really knows or knows how to use. And that's one way she can tell. But I can see this becoming a problem with creativity, that people aren't coming up with new ideas, not just in school systems, but with like really anything. And also, it might continue to increase that time on technology that I talked about earlier, that we really need to be aware of. You know, people that spend more time on technology, more time in front of a screen, they're typically more depressed and more anxious. So these are things as well that we just need to monitor. Like I said, it can be a tool. I use a computer pretty often. Like, I have to type my notes on a computer. I have to do research on a computer. I'm doing this with a computer, things like that. It can be a good tool. Computers, technology, the internet, we got to approach it the same way. This is just a tool that we use to make our life easier, but it's not something that we're going to totally rely on and allow to take over. Also, there's some issues with, you know, those that are trying to maybe use it more in healthcare like settings, that there's privacy concerns with, you know, healthcare information and HIPAA kind of related topics and issues. If you're using it too much, that's sharing confidential information with clients. You know, all the notes I type, I have to do that by hand, and I have to put into a confidential system. If someone were to try and use an AI system, or AI system to help them do that, then some of those notes might become more public information, or there might be some kind of data breach. And those things kind of already exist with technology as we use it, but that could become even more of a problem, and just things to kind of be aware of. So as I've already said, artificial intelligence can make tasks simpler and easier and help us do them faster. I've seen that in my own life, and I love it. It helps me do research and find topics. It's pretty cool how quickly we can do it. We just need to do it in a healthy way where we're not relying on it too much. I think it might start freeing up time in our life. However, I think we need to be wise with what we do with that extra time. If a task maybe at your job took you 4 hours and now you can do it in an hour, what are you going to do with that extra 3 hours? Are you just going to get more work done and try to make more money and just try to grind even more? Because I don't think that's what we need to do with it. I think we need to get work done in a quarter of the amount of time, and now be like, oh, now I have 3 hours I can invest into my health. Now I have 3 hours I can invest in my family, my friends, or this other hobby I want to become a part of. And the reason I bring this topic up is because I already think we do this. In the last, 50 years, let's say, technology and tasks have gotten so much easier. Some of the appliances we use, such as a dishwasher is a good example. So many people have a dishwasher. So many people have a really efficient washer and dryer, and all these appliances and things that we already can do. The way we maybe mow our grass is a lot more efficient than maybe 30 or 50 years ago. However, part of these reasons to have these new technologies was, we thought by this time people would have so much free time and they wouldn't be working as much or as hard. However, the opposite has actually become true. People have less tasks to do at home or less tasks to do with some of these things that help their life become more efficient. So now they just work and grind even more. And I don't believe that's good for our mental health. So if we use AI to just free up time, but instead of using that time to help us grow and to enjoy life, I think that can also become a problem. So those are just a few things to kind of keep in mind and think about some of those things. I think we can kind of start thinking about that today. I know I can fall victim to it too. If I get a task done quicker than expected, I don't usually rest or relax. I'm like, okay, what else can I get done now? So we need to be mindful of what we're doing with this extra time, because it needs to be something that helps us grow and gives us more time and helps us enjoy life more, instead of just create more burden and more stress. So artificial intelligence is definitely here to stay. It is picking up steam and so many people are using it. And overall, I think that can be pretty cool. We just need to be mindful of how we use it. And that can be anything in our life. We need to be the master of the technology and not the slave to it. If we allow AI to control us or to dictate our life or determine what things we do for our career, our own life, that's going to be a problem. But if we use it as, this is something I have control over, helps me get my job done quicker, helps me invest into relationships or help people in a more effective way, I think that can be really cool as well. I also think it's just going to get better. So what we call technology or AI today, it's going to change, in the next couple years, the next 10 years, however that's going to be. So continue to just have boundaries in our life, not just with AI, but technology. I think it's cool that we can do some of the things we do now. I enjoy watching Netflix. I enjoy playing video games at times, but I can't rely on that for all my entertainment, or else I know it's just going to affect my mental health in a negative way. So I hope you're able to learn a thing or two just as an introduction to artificial intelligence and what we can do with it. I think it's going to, continue to grow. And I think it's cool. We just have to be mindful with how we use it. And I hope we can continue to do so that we are able to live a healthy and meaningful life.